And am I seen or heard? How does this work?
You are solely heard.
Solely heard. Okay.
You could be
So
in
I
your
look like
pajamas
shit.
right now.
No, I'm
No
in the
one would
studio,
know.
but I brought a jacket that I would have thrown on if I was to be seen. I'll stay comfortable. Man, I've never done this before. This is crazy.
Yeah, this is. I've done a couple. I'm happy to be doing this one. How are you doing? It's been a few weeks since we talked for the cover story.
I'm okay. I was everything's changing so quick. I'm really good.
That's good.
Yeah.
That's good to hear. I'm happy to be doing this. We are a few hours away from
So
the.
are all these little icons I see people that are in this room with us?
Yep, they're all listening.
Oh, hi guys. Hello.
I don't know if they can all send like waving emojis.
Yeah, some of them are giving me like a thumbs up or waving or like some peace signs.
Love a good peace sign. Jack, thank you again for hopping on, man. Take the Sadness Out of Saturday Night is out in a few hours. Officially, how are you feeling?
I feel really good and kind of messed up. Like I was just telling someone, it's kind of like, you know, recording like a 3-year conversation and then just releasing the transcript, and you're like, oh my god, what did I say? It's just kind of it's really emotional, and to the point where you kind of almost a little bit beside yourself in the nice way.
Do you have like a release night or release day ritual, like something like is there something you're planning on for either tonight or tomorrow that you typically do for a new album?
No, and I wish I did, because I said this thing to I think either my dad or my sister today. I was like, how many of these do you get in a lifetime? These nights. So like, what, 3, 4, 5 if you're like really lucky, 10 if you're in some really rarefied territory. Like, it's not a common thing. It's weird to have experiences in your life where you're like, this is amazing and important to me, and also, how many do I get?
It's a great point. So I have a couple questions. And then we're going to get to some fan questions. Fans submitted questions over the past few days. Thank you to everybody who did. My Twitter account got flooded with people wanting me to ask you things, a lot of which were really smart and insightful. So we're going to get to those in a little bit. By the way, I am coming to you live from New Jersey,
Hey,
which
I'm coming to you live from New York City in a New Jersey hat.
New Jersey, which is about an hour ago, I got a tornado warning
Yeah, I know.
alert, which just to me means that we're on the precipice of a new Bleachers album.
Yeah,
So.
End of the World / New Bleachers album. Let's put them together.
So, I have a couple questions before we get to the fan questions. You and I talked last month.
Also, Jason, real quick, I really loved your story, and it was a big deal for me. And also, I back when Fun was kind of having a big moment, they put us on the cover of Billboard, and I remember when I started Bleachers, I kind of had this feeling like, I love this music, I love this band, but those days are kind of gone, So my own personal world of like, being there again, it was very emotional, and yeah, that's an intense feeling I had. So carry on.
Thanks, man. Thank you. Yeah, it's for anyone who has not checked it out yet. Jack was on the cover of Billboard last week, talking about the Bleachers album, which we're going to dig into in a second, but also about a whole lot of other things. So please check that out. We'll tweet it out or link it out. But yeah, it was great for those for those that were wondering. That was the product of me and Jack in Electric Lady just kind of BSing about the music industry for like, what was it, like an hour and a half to 2 hours?
Yeah, I was just talking a lot of shit, and you made me sound interesting.
Well,
I have a lot of shit to talk about the industry.
Yeah. Well, listen, I appreciate the kind words. It was a blast to put that together. But now we're here. Now we talked about the Bleachers album, and now we are on the precipice of a new one. One of the things that you and I talked about, which has been rattling around my mind, and especially because we're talking in front of so many different fans, is how your fans have gotten to know you and the Bleachers Project to the point where a project like Take the Sadness Out of Saturday Night can be a little bit more subtle thematically and lyrically. And you've released a handful of songs from this album already. What's been your experience with those songs that have already been released, and seeing the fan reaction to them, and kind of seeing how people are exploring these songs and absorbing them?
I like like the context is completely there, and I felt like it was a pretty big risk in terms of my audience to not feel like I had to. The first Bleachers record. I mean, if you think about a song like "I Want to Get Better," it's almost a cliff notes of my life. Like literally, I'm just like rattling off things that have happened to me to give any weight to the idea of "I Want to Get Better." And Gone Now was in many ways a really dark album, and in this one, I felt like I could bring a level of hope or joy that didn't I didn't need to sort of explain why it would be profound for me to feel that way, because a lot of the context was there. So like if one of my favorite songs is 91. I'm talking about my mother and the Gulf War and the end of a relationship and the beginning of the future. The audience knows the context of grief and loss in my personal life, to where that kind of colors it. And it's really special for me. This a place I've always wanted to be in, where I feel like I could write on top of the writing, on top of the writing, on top of the writing. And yeah, I for the first time in my life, in my 30s, I felt like I had space to not explain myself. And I'm really happy I did that, because it actually was pretty nerve wracking in the process.
Is there any song or in particular, like obviously, like I said, you've released a handful of songs, started with Chinatown, now How Dare You Want More, obviously you just released See Your Life. Was there something kind of either a specific song or a group of songs that you were so anxious to kind of get out there, or is it just kind of the full project speaking for itself as a whole body of work?
I was anxious to get Chinatown out there because that song, songs occupy different spaces, but every once in a while you get a song. And when I wrote that song, I kind of recorded it. This is before Bruce is on it, and I was like, "Shit, this thing really sounds like me." Like it really, like if you like opened me up or something, I feel like that's the song that would kind of pour out. And I've never really had one of those. Like I have, lots of different things that are connective tissue, and you don't want too many of those. But I was just like, man, that one really just sounds how I feel. And so I really wanted to get it out, and I really wanted to get it out before 2020 was over, and I just really wanted to not leave people in that year without something. It felt wrong to me, even though the album wasn't done. When Bruce sang on it, that obviously completely changed the whole thing, and I wanted that even more. But then everything else in the album really lives in context with everything else. The whole album is these siblings: A Secret Life and Big Life, 91 and What Do I Do with All This Faith, 45 and Don't Go Dark, How Dare You Want More, and Stop Making This Hurt. There's every song in the album has a sibling that's exploring the same thing from a different side. So I really loved releasing Secret Life, but you got to hear it in conversation with Big Life. I loved putting Stop Making This Hurt out there, but I really wanted How Dare You Want More to come quickly after, because it's a less cynical version of the same thing. Stop Making This Hurt's kind of bitchy. How Dare You Want More is more sad, even though it's a joyous song. And so the whole record is cut into sets of twos. So it really does need to be heard as a whole.
One of the things we talked about a lot was how playing live, in person with your band helped inform the feel of the album and change the context of a few different songs. Can you talk a little bit about that more? Because I really wanted to highlight that in the cover story, and just because I thought it really kind of unlocked the whole album to me.
It's easy to put your band in a room and say, play like your head's on fire. My whole life I thought the way I play shows is that this is my last night on earth. I'm playing the show, right? And it comes down to, it's that cliche. The moment we're in now is that cliche gas tank theory, right? You have full and you have empty, but below empty is that like secret 20-mile reserve, right? So that's what the band tapped into was, I never thought touring was fragile. I thought radio was fragile. I thought press was fragile. I thought popularity was fragile. All these things. Touring is the sturdiest thing in the world from my upbringing. You go out and you play and you find your people, and you always have that. Sounds so silly now. So being with my band, it's a little hyper to say we didn't know if we were going to play again, but we didn't know how many years it was going to be, and we didn't know if we were ever going to get to play the way we need to play, which is pretty sweaty, pretty on top of each other, kind of super spreadery, and you play in a wholly different way. Imagine your favorite meal. Imagine your favorite meal if you're never going to get it again. And it became very clear to me before I even knew the context. I thought to myself, "Oh fuck, this is lightning in a bottle. This has got to be recorded. This has got to be filmed." Band sounds like they're on the edge of a cliff. You don't know if they're going to fly off. What I realized as I started recording them was this whole album is locked into this unearned hope. Every song, every feeling, really dark stories, and then there's still this hope. What do I do with all this faith? That's kind of the quintessential moment of that, right? And what I realized is the band became the sound of that hope, because they're just like a runaway train. There's frustration, there's joy, and the sound of the record is everything. I was talking to someone the other day, and I was like, look at it like this: I want to die. I want to die. Like, I want to die. You can say the same thing, and it could be funny, it could be devastating, it could be a million different things. It's a perfect example for what a band could do on an album or production. So what started out as necessity of wanting to be with my people, wanting to play, wanting to feel that, turned into a huge character on the record. I can talk all my shit and tell my sad stories because the band is sort of pushing me forward, and they're that unearned hope that I sometimes get to at the end of a song.
Since we spoke a couple weeks ago, you've done some, select performances on TV and video. You did the Tonight Show. What was it like being back on a stage, even though we're still a few weeks from the Bleachers tour kicking off, but actually playing these songs together, in a front-facing way?
Oh, it's fucking wild. I mean, it's not. I think we're in for one of the best time periods if we can get off the ground touring ever, because the bands are out of practice. The bands are vulnerable. The audience is vulnerable and out of practice being an audience. Everyone's emotional. We're, like I said, we're living in this thing where I never thought live music had an ounce of cynicism, but I guess it's even less cynical now. Our first performance, we played Fallon show, and he had an audience, and then the Roots are right in front of you. So it was like very surreal to be playing, and obviously like even getting there was basically like all this crazy protocol. That's been the story of this pandemic for us. We haven't played live. The first time we got together as a band, we played on the roof of Electric Lady, and Bruce and St. Vincent came and played with us on the roof, and we were 10 feet apart from each other because that's what it was then. The second time we played was on a bus going from New York to New Jersey for the Spotify thing, and the third time we played was the Fallon show, and they're all wild. The one thing I'll say is I really just want to be out there with our people, because that's it. Like, it's really fun to play on Fallon. That was surreal, but at the end of the day, like, some of the people in the audience are like, people that were at like the gift shop and got a ticket. Like, it's not your audience the same way. So it all just makes me want to get closer to that.
We're gonna get to fan questions. I'm gonna read fan questions in a couple minutes. I have a couple more quick questions. Song "Secret Life" came out this week with Lana Del Rey on it, and I was curious how a song like that happens. And I'm sure fans would also want to know how that happens, just in terms of process. Like, is that a studio session with Lana where you're just creating things in general, and you come up with that song, and it works for the Bleachers album, or is it a separate process where it's like, okay, like, I need your help on this newly created Bleachers song? Like, I'm just kind of curious how that.
No, it's kind of it's pretty, like, all the stories. All the collaborations, Bruce, Lana, J.D. Smith, Warren Ellis, like, they're all kind of the same story. Lana's, I know her really well. We were working on Chemtrails when that happened, and it's just, it actually doesn't happen very often for the way that I collaborate with some people. They don't often end up on my things, but every once in a while, you're kind of like playing someone something, and this is the same story for any of the collaborations. I call it like permission. Actually, someone I love calls it permission, and I'm stealing it. But it's not like, hey, will you sing on this, or hey, we should do this. It's like you show someone something, and you give this like unspoken permission where, and I know it well because I get it from other people. Where someone will play me something, and I'll be like, cool, they're playing me their record, and then sometimes someone's playing me something, and they give this unspoken permission for me to be like, oh, what if you did this? What if you tried this? And that was, was playing Lana Secret Life and kind of just that put that vibe out there. And, I think she was like, I could do this or that. We're just messing around with it. And then she's one of the most beautiful voices ever. But then I was like, well, maybe it's a duet. And then I realized if I kind of like reverbed her out and stacked her, she could be this like dream of the girl I'm talking about. Like this female voice that like represents, this love. And I loved it, and it worked. And ironically, she wrote "Don't Go Dark with Me," but sang on "Secret Life." That's just how it played out.
Last thing I wanted to ask before we get to the fan questions, and thank you again to everybody who submitted questions over the past couple of days. But we talked about time management, and this was a couple of weeks ago. This was since we spoke. Claro released her album, which is beautiful. Sling, for anyone who has not checked that out yet. You are on the eve of releasing Bleachers. Lord's album Solar Power comes out in a few weeks. Meanwhile, you're planning a Bleachers tour that kicks off in September. How are you doing? How are you sleeping? Are you doing okay?
Yeah, I'm sleeping pretty good. I feel good. I mean, I think the trick with a lot of this stuff is when they all trickle out, they feel like these happened over years. So they feel a little bit more condensed than they are. But I'm really proud and excited. I mean, between Take the Status of the Saturday Night, Solar Power, and Sling, I mean, that's just about the 3 favorite things I've ever done. And it's just really wild to have them come out. The tour is wild. Everything's changing so rapidly. It's hard for me to imagine it, but it's there, and I can't wait to feel whatever that is. I don't know. It's kind of a moment of calm because there's a lot of big things going on that could like sweep me away, I guess.
What do you think the reaction is going to be just in terms of first like Bleachers tour show, which I believe is that, and that's Shadow of the City, I believe, right?
Yeah, which is crazy because we announced that a year before it even was, before the pandemic. So whatever 4,000 or 5,000 people are going to be there had their tickets for 2.5 years.
Wow.
So that's just remarkable to me. I don't know what happens. I don't want to know. I think that's sort of the glory of it, is like, to give up on planning a lot of stuff. I'll write some set lists. I'm not going to go into it like, completely blind, but it's, I can't imagine how I'm going to feel. I can't imagine how the audience is going to feel. It's going to be just so heavy.
Can't wait for it. In New Jersey, of course.
And I'm happy I'm in this band because it's like, I think it makes sense. Like we've always had a, sort of a heavy and joyous thing going on at once. And that's been my experience in the pandemic.
It's great. Well, I think it is time for some fan questions. I believe they're going to get pinned.
So they get pinned and then do they chime in?
So I'm going to read them.
Okay.
I believe once they get pinned.
So there's no way to like turn on everyone's mic at the same time and just see what happens.
I think we would call that chaos. All right, so here we go. So Cricket13, thank you for this. Asked 2 days ago, you first debuted 91 at the TAC Talent Show, obviously the Ally Coalition Talent Show, which is something you do every year, which is really, really great if people don't know about it. How has the song changed since, and was it always meant to be a part of this album?
It's always meant to be a part of this album. It was always the overture introduction. It's changed a lot because I couldn't find it. I had the lyrics, they weren't right. Zadie Smith came in and helped me get them right. And I was like, these lyrics are perfect. I don't like it on piano. I don't like it on guitar. Something's got to happen. A real weird journey. Annie Clark, who's St. Vincent, was the one who had the string idea, and that cello made it feel like more sinister. And then it laid space to have all the beauty and not have it feel too sentimental, where you could really hear the story and not and have it not be awkward or something. And then who plays those strings? Then that's a delicate thing. Warren Ellis, which is one of these, sort of ran into at a studio, quietly give permission to fuck with something if you feel it. Ended up doing those parts, and it was just all these bits. It's a very, very delicate song. It's real testament to production to me, which I did very little on that. I kind of let a lot of people help me out, but where you get to this point where you're like, I love this song, but it's not sitting right. And so that one, for something that sounds like me singing on some strings, was a crazy journey. And I actually just shot a thing explaining it, which I think will be really cool, because I open up the track and show how it got to where it is. Way more going on in that song than I can even hear at this point.
That's a wild journey for one song.
Yeah, it was really crazy. And it's always, you just can't know which ones are going to be insane.
So the next question is from Jana Reddick. I think it cuts off in my browser a little bit. Let me see if I can get what would you suggest to a person who feels like music is in their soul, and your music gave me such a feeling of connection, but life/work/family makes it so hard to ever be able, and I can't, oh wait, can I get the rest of it?
Seems like
able to sit and learn music well enough to make something, like being a real artist is just out of the cards.
That's, I don't know if I'm equipped to answer that. That's a really heavy question. And
well,
I don't know.
I
What
guess...
it makes me think? It makes me think. My father is a great guitar player, and when he graduated college, his time was just sort of, he had to literally cut his hair and go work at the shoe factory that his dad had. That was it. He couldn't play. So what I would say to someone like that is, obviously find whatever time you can, but maybe there's a real glory in making space for other people. Like, my father is such a big part of my music now, and you'd have to ask him, but it's almost like that feeling of not having the time or space to do what he wanted, he created for me. So I wonder if it's like something you pass on. But I don't know. I was very lucky where I there's some bad things going on in my house when I was a kid, and so my parents just didn't. We were lucky and didn't worry about like where our meals were coming from. We grew up completely comfortable in that sense, but they didn't care about the cultural stuff that was going on around me. Like in my town, everyone went to college and stuff like this. They were just sort of like, do whatever the fuck you want. So maybe that's a gift you pass on. I don't know though. That's a very intense question.
I mean,
which I appreciate.
To zoom out a little bit into some of the stuff we talked about for the cover story. I mean, one of your main ideas was you make time for the things that you love. Like, you don't feel, even when you have a million obligations, when creating music feels like your passion, and you can make time for it however you can. It doesn't feel like work or too much for you.
It's tough because there's a lot baked into this. So yeah, I mean, what I would say is, if you can find the time, it can create more time. But that's also been the story of my life, where I've removed a lot of other things to make that space. And I don't have kids, I don't have that many people depending on me, so I have space to do that. It's a tough one. I'm not really sure, but I guess Jason, you make a good point. If you can do things that create space, even if you don't think you have time. But without knowing that person's story, I don't know if I feel like equipped to fully. But whoever that was, find me at a show one day. This seems like a much longer conversation.
I love that. Next question is from Kevin Beck. I like this one a lot. Thank you, Kevin. Bruce has the E Street Band. If you were to rename Bleachers, what would you call your band?
Oh, they are Bleachers. I would call them Bleachers. So like, when I think of Bleachers, I don't think of myself. I kind of think of the band, and then I've always thought of Bleachers, especially recently, as a band that I lead. I don't like being in a band. I had very bad experiences. I don't believe in sort of like democracy within bands, but I love having a band and calling on them for all the amazing things they can do. And that's the relationship in Bleachers. Like, these guys are, their sound and their soul is in all of this stuff. I just lead it and I write it. and I like that. I didn't, I all the years I grew up, I thought I loved being in bands. There was this anxiety in me that was driving me crazy, and I realized it was like I can't have my ideas die. Like there's it's not a selfishness, it's just such a sureness where you just like you see something, and then to have to worry about someone else liking it is insane. All those years I was in fun is why I worked so hard on Bleachers. I was so anxious because I just like hated having these ideas and had to run them through some sort of like political system of everyone's feelings. And so Bleachers to me is a band. It's just a band I lead. So I go with the same name.
We got time for, I want to say, 2 more questions. So Matt Clue asked, how did you find the push that helped you be yourself and not give a shit what other people thought?
Well, that's nice of Matt to think that I've transcended to that level. But well, you start to recognize, look, there's no there when it comes to pleasing other people. Where do you draw the line? And you also, I think Jason, we've talked about this when it comes to like big songs or hits or stuff like that. The worst thing that could ever happen is, what if you got popular for something that you didn't even like? What if you tried to please someone else and then everyone gave you a thumbs up? You'd feel like a fraud. You'd feel horrible because you would get something that you want in all the wrong ways. It would be more devastating than just being on the chase for it, which is kind of thrilling. So if you really pull back and you think about it, and this is for most things in life, but definitely for music, it's like, what goal would you reach by doing something that you don't love, that is to please someone else? God forbid you had success that way. It would torture you. We've seen that out there. So it's like, there's really no other path if you weigh all the options.
So we have time for one more. Anna wants to know, what do you like mostly about the connection you have with your fans, and how do you feel being overwhelmed with harassment and memes? Is that like a?
No, I love that. I've created a culture. I've done it in my friend group. I've done it with my audience. That is one of endless bits and I guess bullying. But on the nice side of it, I just if I turn on my phone, it's a endless list of me being made fun of by the people that are listening to these records, and I love it. I really do. It's like my relationship with my family. That's how we show love.
Just memes.
Yeah, so I Bleachers memes, Solving V3, Bleachers fan out, all these places. They just, I love the way they harass the crew and the band, and it's the highest form of love. And it's like our little look. That's not going to be like the wide culture of the band. So it's like I love those, like that very very like magnifying glass look at like the people who are most invested in this thing. And I guess we feel we know each other well enough that we can be cruel to each other.
Listen, sometimes you just got to meme yourself and your friends into oblivion, and everything will be okay.
I appreciate it. I appreciate. I just really appreciate it. That I'm not, all joking aside, that's how I grew up showing love, is just really just lovingly and relentlessly making fun of people I care about.
Jack, listen, man. Congrats on this album. It's out in a few hours at this point. It's been a great time chatting with you about it over these past few weeks, and once again catching up with you about it. Hey,
thank you, Jason. I like this. This is cool. Whatever this thing is neat. It feels like pretty loose. I'm into it.
Let's do it again.
Yeah. I'll just pop back on here for real.
Awesome. I love it, man. Have a great night.
I see all these people in here. I see Maggie. I see Chloe. I see Callum is a picture of my face. Caroline. I see the tomato everywhere. Just hi, everybody. Hi, and sending all my love. And this album is coming at you, and you'll hear all my thoughts through it. Hi, Deb. I see you doing that thing. Yeah, I see everyone. Oh, there's Michaela. Hey, All
right. Thank you guys, and thank you guys again for everyone who submitted questions, and really appreciate it. And thanks again for listening. We'll hopefully do it again.
All right, bye guys.
Yeah.